Hey guys, how's it going? Otaku Mike here, back again with another video for you guys today. Let's get all the YouTube stuff out of the way. Like, subscribe, comment. It actually does help out the channel. If you like the content I create. But without further ado, let's get into this. We are going to talk about the deluxe edition. I'm doing a manga first impression on Hellsing, written and drawn by Kohta Hirano. Let's get into this. Alright, so what exactly is Hellsing all about? Well, Hellsing is about the Hellsing Organization. They protect Queen and Country from the things that go basically bump in the night. They're a secret government organization. They fight vampires, ghouls, stuff like that. We have one of our main characters, Sir Integra Hellsing. She is the leader of the Hellsing Organization. She has a heavy hitter, the first vampire, Alucard, and he basically does all the dirty work for the Hellsing Organization. On a routine mission at a village, they meet this vampire who's turning these other people into ghouls, and Alucard basically has to take him out. Just so happens he happens to be holding a hostage by a police girl named Victoria Seras, and she is our basically window look into this world of Hellsing, as she essentially dies and basically becomes a vampire herself. So come to find out, the Hellsing Organization learns that this group of people called Millennium, basically, are trying to take over the world and make things better by having fake vampires and monsters and stuff like that. And they're going after the Hellsing Organization. In a nutshell, that's basically how it is. The bad guys fight the Hellsing Organization. The Hellsing Organization sometimes wins, sometimes doesn't. But our real bread and butter are the characters of Hellsing. They are pretty interesting characters. You have Alucard, the unstoppable vampire. You have the newly transformed police girl, Victoria. And we have the leader, Hellsing, Integra Hellsing. And, it's their journey to try to stop all the bad guys. This series, I know, does have a lot of fans with it. For me personally, I watched the original anime. That was about it. This is my first time reading the Hellsing manga. I have some mixed feelings about it, and we're going to get into that in a minute. So let's talk about basically how I felt about the story. The story was okay. There were parts of it that I liked, there were parts of it that I didn't. I felt like the story was kind of paint by numbers and somewhat generic when it comes to vampire stories. There's not really truly much to spoil in this series. If you think it's going to happen, it probably will happen in Hellsing. I felt like one thing that went against this series in a big way is Alucard himself. Alucard himself is a really cool character. When he gets introduced, he's very, almost suave, he's like, I'm better than you type of situation, And when he gets down and dirty, and he rips people apart and gets very violent. And that's where the action picks up a lot, is when Alucard always shows up. The thing is, though, they paint Alucard to basically be the Superman of vampires, even though, yeah, I get it, he is, the first vampire. He is the strongest vampire there is. But in fights, there just doesn't seem to be any stakes. Yes, Alucard gets beaten up and shot up and decapitated and all this kind of stuff. But, I mean, when there's no real threat, there's no real stakes to the fight, the fighting just kind of, means nothing, in a sense. It was it was entertaining, but it was only entertaining on a surface level. It was like kind of watching like a popcorn blockbuster flick, and you enjoy the action, but the story's kind of it's okay. I do feel like it starts to pick up a little bit with Alucard. We get to learn a little bit more about his backstory and stuff like that. His relationship with Integra and his relationship with Victoria, and his rivalry with probably one of the coolest characters, Alexander, I believe his name was. He's like a priest who works for the Vatican. He's like the opposite of Alucard, which that moment was really cool. I really enjoyed that meeting because it almost felt like there was something that could take on Alucard, but he doesn't in the end. There were parts of it that were just like, but yeah, Alucard is cool, but I feel like there was no real threat to Alucard. So let's talk about Victoria Seras now. I thought Victoria Seras was actually a really cool character, but in all honesty, for her to be the quote main character, she's our window into this world. She kind of plays second fiddle to Alucard. I liked their dynamic together. Their dynamic together was pretty fun. Master, student, pupil type of thing. I really liked the aspect of Seras grappling with her new life as a vampire, basically. I thought that was really cool and really intriguing because she doesn't want to taste blood, and she's trying to hold on to this, what she thinks is the last of her humanity, and eventually she does give into it. I like the moments early on when she's in it or when she shows up in it, but towards the end of this first deluxe edition, she's kind of almost non-existent. It's all becomes all about Alucard, and I know Alucard is a big part of the story, but when you introduce a character who's supposed to, travel alongside Alucard, I would like to see her journey as well. And we do get some stuff, but it's slight things here and there where you could basically lift her out of the story and she would be non-important to the story. So let's talk about I guess the big elephant in the room. As much as I did enjoy this story, I do feel like there are a lot of pacing issues with this story. I like the action. I like some of the character interactions and stuff like that, and some character development. I use that in quotations. But in reality, I feel like Hellsing is basically a product of its time. It's edgy for the sake of being edgy. It's violent for the sake of having a ton of violence in it, which is cool, but I feel like that detracts somewhat from the story. I wanted more to the story. The story's cool, but there's nothing really to chew on sufficiently when it comes to the story. Because when the story basically boils down to it is Hellsing Organization is fighting against Nazis. That's it. That's our big reveal, is Nazis. Spoiler warning. Sorry for that. This has pacing problems. One big pacing problem that I actually really feel that happens is there are parts in this, and I'll show you guys what it looks like, where he tries to add comedy into it, and I don't feel like the comedy essentially works. For the most part, Like, don't get me wrong. The artwork itself is beautiful. I think Dark Horse did a really good job in translating this. The action scenes are awesome and beautiful. But we get to these parts right here in the book. The tonal shift and the artwork just comes out of nowhere, and honestly, the humor didn't really do anything for me. I got taken out of the story, and that's something that's, that might be just me and my personal preference, but I mean, there are other ways to do comedy when it comes to breaking up the monotony of such a serious manga, in my personal opinion. As much as I do feel like this series does have problems, and in my opinion, it probably hasn't held up. I feel like the nostalgia for this series is probably bigger than the manga itself, and when you put on your rose-colored glasses or rose-tinted glasses, you might not see the problems with said series. Now, I get it, this is a pretty beloved series, and I did enjoy it. For its flaws, I did enjoy this book. And I probably will end up picking up the rest of this manga. But I can't look past the really big flaws. There are some wonky faces in this. I hate it when it goes to the comedic art style. It takes me out of it completely. And it becomes basically Alucard. It is Alucard's story, but I would like to see other characters shine within this series. We do get to see some really cool villains, but the villains are very paint by numbers, megalomaniacal maniacs who are trying to take over the world, and they want the alt-right to be a thing again. Which, hey, if you're into that and you want to be Nazis and have werepires, that's cool. But it, I would like to see more of a threat when it comes to Alucard fighting people, or not people, but his adversaries. Like, there were some cool parts in this. I felt real dread when Alexander the priest shows up, and he's basically like a horror movie villain, and he's trying to track down Victoria Seras and like hunt her down and kill her. It is a very gruesome scene. There's also a gruesome scene where they're in a hotel and Alucard is basically like taking out all these humans who are trying to kill him, and he like throws some of them out the window, and he basically like impales them on flagpoles, which I was like, holy shit, that was cool. But I mean, I need more substance over style, and I feel like this is more style over substance. Anyways, guys, I think I'm done ranting about this video. I liked it, but I don't like it enough to call it a classic. If you can't tear down some people's favorite manga, shit happens, But if you're interested in picking this up, pick it up, give it a shot. Just because I personally didn't like it, or I didn't click with me like a lot of people did, I still found enjoyment out of it. And go check it out if you're interested. Please let me know in the comment section if you think my opinions are wrong. And let me know if you're going to pick it up. Like, subscribe. Let's do this again sometime and talk about some Hellsing.